Hello, SolarLune here, and this is a short little dev log video for a game in production that I'm working on called Gearend. Gearend is a 2D Metroidvania made in BDX, which is a game engine based on libGDX and Java. You control this little robot named Epsilon as he explores a robotics facility. You can equip different parts, and yeah, it's coming along. It's almost done. Looking pretty good, feeling pretty good. Each part has its own behavior and like advantage and stuff like that. So it should be fun. But that's not what I'm going to talk about. I wanted to talk about specifically something I added that is a time saver, and I feel like not everyone may know exactly how it works. And it's pretty common in games, so I figured that it might be useful to have a little video talking about how I do it, and that's automatic Newline support. So you can press a button down by default in my game to interact with things, to look at them, talk about them, whatever, talk to people, and a message box comes up that displays text. And basically, once it gets to a certain point, it breaks off and goes to a new line. So that's automatic new lines. But prior to this, I was doing it manually. I would add little new line characters in each dialogue string. And well, it's a little slow. You know, it wasn't too big of a deal, but it's error prone. It's not really an ideal solution. So I wanted to go over like how I do automatic new lines now. So this string, the desk appears well used, but still fairly new and modern. The shelves are mostly empty, save for a few miscellaneous items. That string is over here. This string here. And you can ignore the hashtag self. That's just something I add to the beginning for a little formatting thing. But this is the string. So for automatic new lines to work, we want the computer, the program, to say, okay, at a certain point, I need to break this up into a new line because there's too many characters. So it starts searching forward and says, okay, I've reached so many characters. That's too many. I'm going to add a new line, you know, at somewhere. And then it keeps going from that point forward. So that function, that process, can be seen here in this block of code, from this line all the way down to this line. That's the automatic new line support section. So MSG is a variable that holds our message string, this, the desk appears well used, blah, 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 until items. That all is a single string. And it's stored in message. It comes into this section of code, and then it goes out. And that's what is displayed later. So we're going to walk through this just kind of line by line, pretty straightforward, in a straightforward manner, pretty simply. It's not too much code, not too difficult, but I figured that if you're new to kind of understanding how this works, you might find it interesting. So we're going to establish some things. We already know kind of what it's supposed to do. So now we're going to establish some baseline stuff. How many characters are there maximum per line? So for me, that's 50. For your game, it might be more or less. Ideally, it would probably be best to get the actual width of the line rather than just guessing based off characters, but this is a fine approach, especially if you're using monospace font, which should be in such a way that like every character has the same width in your font, rather than non-monospace where, you know, a space might be smaller than a capital A, for example, or a capital W. Search index is where we're going to start searching. So like I mentioned before, we're going to search through the string and find where to put new line characters. And we can put obviously more than one because you might have multiple lines. For me, I have like 4 lines maximum. Okay, so string auto new line out, that's where we're putting all the kind of the transform text. And then we write that back to the message variable once we're done. At end is a variable that we're using just to determine if we're done searching through this string, and that's it. Okay, so the process is basically just this section here. First thing we do is determine where the right edge of the search is, because we want to search a certain number of characters. So we start off and we say, okay, basically we have 50 lines maximum. We want to search the first 50 lines or the length of the message. It's possible that the message is short. Let's say it's 40 lines, 40 characters or 30 characters, in which case we don't want to search 50 characters into a 30 character string. That's going to cause an error. So we say, okay, give us either the search index plus the line limit, the character limit per line, 50, or the message length, whichever's shorter. And then we want to bite off a chunk of the string of this. We want to bite off a chunk of that, either the first 50 characters or until the end of the string, whichever's shorter. So it says, okay, the first 50 characters roughly are around here. So we say, okay, cool. Now we're going to skip this section, and we'll come back to that later. We say, okay, now give us the last space we have in that chunk. So out of this chunk, give us the last space. And it's right here, between new and. So it says, okay, I found a space, and you're not at the end of the message, then go ahead and add to our kind of intermediary string variable, the substring. We're cutting out of our chunk, out of these 50 characters, we're cutting out basically from the beginning to where that space is. So we want to grab basically this section. So it was like roughly a little bit further. We want to grab this section and add that. And then we want to put a new line character there. So it ends up something like this. Like that. That's what we have so far. We add that to auto line, new line out. And then we set the search position to be the space, the space location +1. So now it starts searching from this point forward for the next 50 characters. And that's the process. If we're done and if either we can't find a space or we're at the end of the message, then we just add the remainder and set the search index to be the length of the message. And down here we say if the search index is set to the length of the message or is further along, then we're done. There's no reason to continue on this loop. So that's it. It just searches basically the X 50 characters, finds the last space, puts a new line, search the next 50 characters, find the last space, put a new line, continue. And that's it. I'm doing this a little dumbly here, where I say, if you can't find a space or search index, basically if you can't find a space, just add it to the end. That's a fine approach if you don't have any really long sentences. Like, I'm assuming that I'll never have a really long sentence where I need to cut it up in any other way. But I could obviously change it to use something else. Like if you find a space or if you find a hyphen or anything like that, then you can go, a slash, whatever. Now, say we already have new lines in our code. In our message. We might have a new line. For example, it might be like, "Hello, new line." What are you doing here? Like, we might want to have a little bit of formatting in the string from our approach. We might want to have that in there predetermined. So we say, okay, if you actually, before we do this space searching thing, if you find a new line early in our chunk, then we basically already have had it split up for us. So we say, okay, well then just start searching from that point forward on the next go through of the while loop and add the chunk of the text from the beginning to the new line. So basically if we put a new line, let's say here, let's delete this because that was just for demonstration. We put a new line here, we want it to say, okay, search for the next 50. Oh, but there is a new line. So then we want to add this section to our, finished code, and then search for the 50 characters from this point forward, like that. And then say, find the next either new line somewhere around here, or the space coming from the back, and then add a new line there. Straightforward, that's it. Yeah, and once we're done. We assign it to message, and then we type it out later. And that's how you get the automatic new line. That's how you get it nice and smooth. All right, well, thank you very much for watching. This has been a quick little devlog video kind of thing on Gearend and automatic new line support, and it being kind of a useful thing to add in, especially if you have a text-heavy game and you want to kind of save time. It seems like it's a good thing to add in. All right, well, thank you very much. See ya.